You don't have to put up with the GSEs. You don't have to put up with their demands. You don't have to put up with AMCs and lenders because those are not your clients.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome, everybody, to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. Dustin Harris hanging out once again in the official podcast chair, and a great guest coming up. But first, I want to pause and remind you of a couple of great companies. Of course, OREP Insurance is my E&O of choice, should be yours as well. Go to orep.org to learn more. That's OREP.org. And Spark for appraisers, folks. It was made by appraisers for appraisers. Why? To help you to be more efficient. If you don't know about Spark, you need to check them out by going to sparkforappraisers.com. I want to welcome back to the program my good friend and the USPAP expert, the appraiser's advocate, Mr. Tim Andersen.
Dustin, it is great to be with you to talk about real estate appraisal and old-fashioned rock and roll.
I cannot wait. We talked a little bit off the air that a little analogy that I hope he will use in the second half of the show. But first, we're going to dive into a couple of questions. The first one comes from Dana. Dana asked a question that is not quite a USPAP question, Tim, but kind of. Because it goes into scope of work and goes into, what we do as appraisers. I'll just read the question, then let you take it away, Tim. From Dana, she says, I'd like to discuss this if the only access to a finished living area is through an unfinished mechanical room. So I'll just pause, let everybody get that in their head. To get to the living area, you've got to go through an unfinished area. It's unlikely that the finished space would be considered part of the total living area according to ANSI standards. However, the space might still be usable living space, but it wouldn't count toward the finished square footage in an appraisal or for other real estate purposes. How do we comply with regulations like ANSI, but still maintain our independence as appraisers? Tim, what say you?
Dana, first of all, thank you for a very powerful question. I appreciate it very much. You're right. ANSI says that living area and unfinished mechanical areas are not the same. Therefore, don't lump them together because theoretically they will contribute to the overall value differently. The fact that you're right, the mechanical area won't count toward living area. What I think, however, Dana, you have is not an ANSI problem. I think what you have is a functional obsolescence problem in the fact that typically to get into a house, you walk through the front door, which is into the foyer or the living room or the family room or something like that, with the mechanical room someplace else in the house. Whereas, according to the setup in your question, you have to walk through the mechanical room to get into the house itself. Now, remember, a lot of people enter their home from the garage, which is a sort of kind of mechanical room, through a mud room, which usually leads into the kitchen. So your setup is not that out of the ordinary. But again, I think you have a functional problem more than you have an ANSI problem. Therefore, the answer to your question lies in market data. Now, we don't have time to go into a long answer here, but just remember in hot markets, the fact you have to walk through a mechanical area to get to the living area may mean absolutely nothing. And if you believe the GSEs, the United States is still in a hot real estate market with a shortage of new construction. So as a result, the fact you get to the house in the mechanical room may not mean anything whatsoever. Yeah. So please don't, in logic, this is called begging the question. Don't just assume it's a problem and therefore try to solve it. if it's not a problem, it ain't broke. Don't fix it.
Yeah.
So, Dana, you're gonna have to look a lot more carefully at the market to see if that really it's not an ANSI problem. It may be a functional problem, and you're going to have to look very closely at the market to conclude that. And I'm not trying to be mercenary here, but it's very possible that you might have underbid the job.
Mhm.
And in underbidding the job, you're saying, well, if I go to that time and if I go to that much time and trouble, I'm going to be paying the client to do this appraisal. And you're right, you are.
Yeah.
And at this point, you've got two choices. Either do it, eat it, learn from it, and move on, or walk away.
Mhm.
And I think walking away at this point would not be the better choice. But I'm probably wrong. Just ask my wife.
Thank you, Tim. A great answer to a very complicated question. I think, the great thing about these types of questions, Tim, and correct me if you feel differently, but everybody's worried about AI and everybody's worried about machine learning. Everybody's worried about the changes, the modernization, and everything else that's going on. But in the end, these are the things that are job security, right? These types of problems are actually, in my mind, a positive thing because a computer, at least at this point, can't handle this the way that an appraiser can see it and the way that an appraiser can delve into it. So I appreciate that, Tim, very much. When we get back, want to talk a little bit more about questions from the audience, from the listeners. First, want to pause, of course, and remind you what fuels this show, and that is the sponsors. And OREP Insurance being one of them. OREP, of course, is my E&O of choice. Folks, you do have a choice out there. You don't have to go with E&O through OREP. You don't have to go with E&O through one of these other companies. You do have a choice. It is a capitalist society still, kind of. I implore you folks to check out OREP. I know you don't care about insurance. I know that it's just something you got to get done. But folks, there are so many other benefits that come from being a member of OREP. Don't believe me? Check out their website, orep.org, and just click on the benefits tab, including the free CE that they give every single year. Great company. Great support of appraisers. Again, it's orep.org. That's OREP.org. Speaking of big data, and some of the things that we are changing with our lives with AI and such. Folks, you need good software to help you to do your job better. And Spark is good software to help you to do your job better. Folks, it will save you time. It will save you energy. It will allow you to take data here and put it over here seamlessly and without human error. Check them out by going to spark4appraisers.com. Again, that's Spark, F-O-R, for appraisers.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Got my good friend, the appraiser's advocate, Mr. Tim Andersen. Tim, what does it mean to be an appraiser's advocate? What do you do?
Well, because I retired from active appraisal a number of years ago, rather than wanting to get in fabulous physical shape by riding my bike all the time and take on a PhD in something important, I decided that I wanted to work with my fellow appraisers. And this happened, quite frankly, in graduate school. I met another guy from Florida who had just had a horrible experience with the state appraisal board. And I decided right there that appraisers needed help. And they needed help with staying away from the board and as well as help with once they get called up before the board. And so that's what I've spent about the last 10 years doing. And it's something that I enjoy very much because I get to talk to appraisers from all over the country. I get to help appraisers all over the country. And I'm able to make a very comfortable living in my retirement by doing it.
And if people want to get a hold of you, and they should, by the way, how do they get a hold of you, Tim?
Him at theappraisersadvocate.com.
Thank you, friend. All right. Last question. This comes from Kevin. He goes by Kev. He, by the way, is a member of my All-Star team. In fact, this came in through the All-Star Team communication side, a private forum that we have to communicate there. He says, with the February 4 changes for Fannie Mae compliance and the new UAD next year, I worry that our profession is moving less appraiser oriented or directed and more computer and GSE directed. I understand that it's up to the appraiser to determine the scope of work and to be in compliance with the USPAP, but where is the line between my decisions and central direction? Tim, what do you think? It's a good question.
Kevin, this is a great question, Kevin. Thank you for answering it. Okay, I will speak candidly, and I hope not overly cynically. Dustin knows me, knows I'm a terrible cynic, so I'm going to try to stay away from that.
Sure.
But Kevin, you're right. Real estate appraisal is moving away from the appraiser, and it's moving toward computers. And the Kevin, appraisers have never been in charge of real estate appraisal ever. So it's always been in the hands of lenders. Well, let me append this comment to that. If you're doing work for lenders, real estate appraisers have never been in charge of real estate appraisal. The lender always has been. Now, your comment is okay. I understand, and I'm trying to remember what Dustin said. The appraiser determines the scope of work. Yes, without question, the appraiser determines the scope of work. And I think the last half of your question was, where's the line between my decisions as the appraiser, the one who's put boots on the ground, who's put boots in the living room,
Right.
and the central direction? Okay, let's go back to scope of work. Yes, according to USPAP, yeah, you choose the scope of work. Now, your client is going to send you a scope of work statement in your engagement letter. Well, okay, if that's a reasonable scope of work, you can follow it.
Right.
If it's not, then you're going to have to get back with the client and say, no, here's what I'm going to do. And if the client says, no, you're going to do what we told you to do, then basically your choices are two: either go okay or walk away from it. That's your choice. That's what you're in charge of. And then if you look at the scope of work in the pre-printed form, the scope of work is completely wrong. In fact, it's an utter, total, screaming violation of USPAP, because your scope of work, by definition, is the extent of the type and extent of research and analysis you went to arrive at your value opinion. And that's not what the pre-printed scope of work says. It says you're going to go to the property and you're going to turn the water on and you're going to flush the toilets and a few other things. Well, that's lovely, but that's not scope of work. That's called an inspection. So yeah, the scope of work is up to you, and take that opportunity. And take that opportunity, set your scope of work. And then if the client won't accept it, okay, walk
Business
away.
decision, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a business decision. It's got nothing to do with appraising, and you walk away. So, Kevin, we just went through changes. Real estate appraisal is changing. I can remember rolling the legal sized form into a typewriter and typing appraisals. That's how long I've been doing it. Okay, so it changes. I mean, look at Dustin. When he started appraising, he had hair.
I knew you were going there.
Sorry about that, Dustin. When I started appraising, my hair was deep brown.
There you go.
Okay, so yeah, I've been doing it a long time. But Kevin, to say, if you want to be more in charge of how you appraise, then I'm going to suggest to you get out of the GSE business and you start doing private work. Because in private work, you don't have to put up with the GSEs. You don't have to put up with their demands. You don't have to put up with AMCs and lenders, because those are not your clients. So this might be part of, you're looking around, you're saying, okay, what changes am I going to make in 2025? We're recording this in January 2025. You might say, well, you know what? I'm going to get with the Appraisal Institute and I'm going to take their series of classes on becoming an expert witness. Or I'm going to get with the ASA, the American Society of Appraisers, and take their classes on appraisal of rare books. Or I'm going to get with the IAAO and take some of their classes on appraising um, for tax appeal work. Those are all legitimate roadways, all legitimate pathways to doing appraisals other than GSE work. So, Kevin, I laud you for looking at the situation you're in and trying to change what you're doing. And do you have to? No. But you'll probably find that as you go from 90% GSE work to 30% GSE work, your work picks up and you're not sitting there watching TV at 9:30 on Saturday night and you get that snotty text from the AMC saying your report's due Monday, can we have it early? Typically that just won't happen. So take a look into going another direction. There's more than one road in real estate appraisal, and we come to crossroads. And as Robert Johnson said, he came to a crossroads, fell down on his knees, and asked heaven above, "Please have mercy on poor Bob, if you please." You can tell I'm an old blues fan, with the emphasis on old. And we come to crossroads, and we have to say, "All right, what am I going to do?" We can go straight. We can keep doing what we're doing. We can take another road. And sometimes, as I think it was Robert Frost said, and I took the road less traveled by, and that made all the difference.
Love it. Thank you, Tim. Beautiful, wonderful prose as always, and great advice. Folks, if you have not heard yet, I implore you to go to theappraisercoach.com and check out the Elevate Appraiser Retreat, which will be in May. Blaine Fyan and I have got together to have 3 wonderful days, the first part of May in beautiful Coors Gold, California, in a wonderful setting just outside Yosemite National Park, where we are going to go very deep in learning and growth, and just going to be a wonderful experience for everybody. We do have limited seats. There are only 15 seats total available, folks, for this event. So check us out. Go to theappraisercoach.com and check out TEAR, TEAR, the Elevate Appraisal Retreat. Let's tear up the old playbook and tear into a new world of appraisal and business development. We'll see you there, folks. And Tim, once again, thank you for being here, my friend, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate it. My best to you, your family, and all your listeners. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.